everybody, welcome back. This is the second part to a video that I actually put up about a month ago of my dressmaker's ball dress. Apologies, it's taken a while. For those of you who've seen that, you'll recognise this footage, but I thought it would be helpful to show you the fabric that I bought and what I was intending to do with it. The fabric on the right here that I'm showing you is a embroidered silk chiffon that I bought in Thailand. And you can see more fabrics I brought back from Thailand in the top right hand corner. For those of you who haven't seen it, the fabric on the left was used to make a silk sheath dress that is worn underneath the dress that I'm talking about today. So when I talk about 2 layers, that's what's underneath it, and you can see the finished product here. If you'd like to see more detail about how I made this dress and the process that went into it, you can see a link to that video in the top right hand corner now. So the original plan for these 2 dresses was that I would have the sheath dress, which you can see scribbled on the right here, as a dress that I could wear in its own right, and would be a perfectly serviceable and nice plain dress that could be worn for lots of different occasions. I really wanted something from this project that I could wear a lot and wouldn't be so special occasion that it got kind of relegated to that bit of the wardrobe that only ever comes out for particularly special things. But given I had this beautiful chiffon and it had been sitting in my stash for ages, I wanted to find a way of integrating that. So the idea was to make a dress out of the chiffon that would in its own right be a standalone with something underneath it, but that I could wear over the top of the sheath dress to create a kind of double layer. So this is the first toile I made for the overlayer, and there are a few things to note about where the style has changed from the sheath dress. So the sheath dress has fisheye darts down the front and then shoulder darts up to the shoulder. The challenge with this version was for the silk, I didn't want fisheye darts. I didn't want anything in the front of the dress that was going to distract from the embroidery. So I wanted to move those to become side bust darts. The only way I knew how to do that was to put a waist seam into the garment and move all of the darts into that side dart that you can see pointing at the main bust point in order to remove all of the busyness from the top section. I then sewed the whole dress together, including the waist seam, which you can see on this version. And the intention was that I could then use this as a pattern. Essentially, imagine cutting straight down the middle of the front of this dress and use one half as a pattern piece, which would thereby remove the waist seam on the final version, but I'd get the dart finish that I wanted. The other thing I've obviously done is added a sleeve, which means that I also needed to redraft for that purpose, because you want to leave the dart to the armhole in if you're putting sleeves in, i.e. you don't sew it, because you need that extra bit of room so that if you move your arms back, you don't suddenly rip the front of your dress. So in actual fact, this required me to completely redraft the top bodice part of the dress, which meant I had to redraft the whole thing. So the neckline is copied directly from the sheath so that this would sit very neatly on top, but everything else had to be drafted from scratch. So although the silhouette is very similar and the 2 fit very well together, it's a completely new dress in terms of actual pattern drafting. So I was really pleased with the fit of this. It actually came out incredibly well first time round, but I decided that I should do a second toile that removes the waist seam, just to be absolutely sure that I wasn't going to make a mistake, particularly as I hadn't done this before. I hadn't done a dress where I'd put a waist seam in and then tried to take it out in another version. So what you can see here is the second toile, which I made out of a sari that I'd been given very kindly by a friend of mine. And I decided to make this so that I could wear it. So this hopefully will end up being a wearable toile once it eventually has 2 arms. Clearly, I've still not done that. It doesn't have a empire line as it looks like it does here. That's simply the pattern of paneling on the fabric. But what you can hopefully see is there's no waist seam on this, so I've removed that completely. And I took the draft that I'd done from the gingham version to check that all of this stuff that I'd done to fix the style lines would actually work and I could still wear the thing. It turned out really beautifully. It still fits really well. I love the sleeve on this. I think it looks gorgeous in this really light floaty fabric, and the slight downturn on the outer edge of the sleeve is really effective. And on this version I have hand rolled hemmed the neckline. This essentially acted as the proof point that I could go straight into the silk and it would be fine, and the fit was really good. So I'm very glad that I took the time to do this extra toile and make sure that the edits that I'd made were not going to do something disastrous. And the next stage was to go straight onto the silk version. There was nothing particularly special in the construction of that. It was a very simple process, in fact, because there's hardly any darts. and it's a simple dress, so not a lot to say in terms of the construction process, so I will show you the final version now.
Well, here she is. This is with both layers, so I've got the silk sheath dress on underneath and then the overlayer of the lace, and I've got to say, I mean, I need to stand in this corner for you to be able to see it at full length because I can't get the angle. But when the fabric's this beautiful, you kind of just have to let it do its own thing. So I've kept this super, super simple. There are very few lines in it. The darts are very minimal. There's literally just 2 bust darts here and nothing else on the front. The back does have more, so the back has shaping back darts and a shoulder dart, but that's to make sure I could get the shape through my back because it's very hollow, so it requires that. I've done a very traditional zip insertion because I didn't have a invisible zip, and I was worried that an invisible zip with all of this embroidery would get really puckery and bulky. So the back is a slot zipper. When I did the first toile of this, I had the sleeves straight across and longer than this, and I started to roll them up to see what they would look like shorter, and I got an angle because I rolled up the middle first, and I actually really liked it, so I've kept that. The sleeves scalloped down to be slightly longer on the outside and then shorter at the underarm seam, which just adds a very, very tiny touch of difference, I guess. So my query or question now is how to finish the edges, because I wanted to do full, I wanted to hand turn all of them and do rolled hems. But this fabric is really hard to turn because it's got embroidery and the embroideries are quite thick, so if I come a bit closer. Things like these stems are actually pretty much satin stitched on top. So if you try and turn this and turn it more than once, it really starts to ripple and bulk because it's not even in its thickness. The fabric goes from very thin, obviously just chiffon, which is super fine, all the way through to very, very thick embroidery. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. I was going to bind the edges, but I don't have if I had a plain chiffon, enough of the plain chiffon to bind it, it might be okay. But I don't have a thin enough fabric, I think, that's not going to just add a load of bulk to the edges. I've got silk organza, so I could bind it in silk organza, which would be very, very faint and you wouldn't really be able to see it at the neck edge, which might be the right answer. I think at the hem and the sleeves, I'm actually just going to do a super narrow, very tiny zigzag stitch all the way around the edge and then trim right up to that zigzag so that it doesn't turn over at all, it's just a single layer. But at the neck, I think that's going to look too unfinished. It just feels so special and it fits so beautifully, and yeah, I'm thrilled with it actually. I'm so pleased that I really took my time and thought about it. I just love it, it's amazing, and yay! If you're not coming to the ball, then I hope you're sewing something super exciting that you can love too. And I will see you all again really soon. Bye!